Now we will study the histological division of the heart by visualizing it in a microscopic view. When we see from histological perspective, we have three histological components of the heart. The first one is cardiomyocytes, which is the major component of heart, and these are cardiac muscles which have a significant role in contraction activity of heart. Then we have the connective tissues containing blood vessels, arteries, veins, nerves, and these are also very important. The last one is the histological layers of heart. To memorize these components, you can use mnemonic children cry loudly. The first component of histological division of heart is cardiomyocytes, defined as specialized cells in the heart. These are basically cardiac muscle cells that are entirely involuntary in action and responsible for control of rhythmic beating of heart. The four chambers of the heart that we have discussed before are composed of cardiomyocytes. The muscle cells present in the body are responsible for the contraction and generates movement. In the same way, the cardiomyocytes generate the contractile force each time when the heart pumps the blood. The cardiac contractility is the tension developed and velocity of shortening of myocardial fibers after preload, which is initial stretching of muscle cells, and afterload, which is the force against which heart contracts to eject blood. Here, we have an image of cardiomyocytes. The first part of cardiomyocyte is intercalated disc, which is gap junctions where the end of cells is connected to another cells and permits rapid transmission of action potential from one cell to the other that produces contraction and thus maintains the circulation. Cardiac muscles also have a central nucleus which comprises of mitochondria and thus provides energy. The last one is striations, which is due to alternating thick actin and myosin filaments, which are present in the muscles and thus gives them striated appearance. To learn them in the easiest way, you can use the mnemonic inject new syringe ing. In the next phase, we will describe the second histological component, which is connective tissues. So the heart contains a two-layered connective tissue called as pericardium. So, what does a picture frame do? It holds the picture in place. In the same manner, the pericardium acts as a protective covering around the heart that holds the heart in place. It is a thin sac, and here in this illustration, you can see the pericardium. As we know that pericardium is composed of two layers. The first one is fibrous pericardium, which is the outer layer of pericardium, and it is composed of dense connective tissues, which forms strong rope-like structures such as tendons and ligaments. So, what is its working? It anchors the heart to the mediastinum of chest wall and thus provides stability. So, did you see? It works exactly like rope, and right here in this image, you can see this fibrous pericardium. Other than fibrous pericardium, we have another layer known as serous pericardium, which is the inner layer. The serous pericardium is further divided into two layers. One is the parietal pericardium, which lines the fibrous pericardium. The other one is the visceral pericardium, which is closest to the heart, as you can see in this illustration. As its name indicates, visceral means organ, and so it surrounds the heart. Both the parietal and visceral pericardium performs the same function, as they provide lubrication and mechanical protection to the heart and all the blood vessels associated with it. What comes in your mind when we say word cavity? Cavity means hollow space, and yes. Here we are going to study about pericardial cavity, which is the cavity of the heart, and it is present in between the parietal and visceral pericardium. The pericardial cavity consists of pericardial fluid, just as the bowl contains soup. This pericardial fluid provides the lubrication and protects the heart from friction. You can visualize pericardial cavity in this illustration. Let us discuss layers of heart now. The heart consists of 3 layers, named as epicardium, myocardium, and endocardium, and they are arranged in order from outer to inner side closest to heart. And so here you can see the histological view of layers of heart, resembling that of a double flavor cake. You can memorize the name of layers by using mnemonic sentence "Eat meat excitedly" or EME. Now we are diving deep into the knowledge of histology of layers of heart. The outermost layer of heart wall is epicardium, and it is the visceral layer of the serous pericardium, as we have studied before. This layer is well lubricated. Moving ahead, we will see that why epicardium is significant. The first thing is that it contains adipose tissues. Yes, you are on point. These are loose connective tissues of fats, and this is an active metabolic organ which helps in lipid homeostasis. The next component is connective tissues. It is a highly vascular layer as it contains major arteries and veins as well as nerves. The function of connective tissues is to provide nutrients to this layer. The last component is mesothelial cells, which are the cells that lines our vital organs of body and provides them smooth surface in which they can easily move while staying in their place. Here we have an illustration in which we can see the adipose tissues or fats in yellow, and connective tissues can also be seen. To memorize these 3 components of epicardium, we can use the mnemonic chop, cook, and make or CCM. The second layer of the heart is called as myocardium, also known as the muscular layer, as it contains a huge proportion of cardiomyocytes. So this is all clear, but why do we need glycogen in myocardium? The myocardium needs glycogen and energy for the contraction of heart, but now we will study the detailed concept about it. By now, we have known that the myocardium is rich in glycogen, and it needs energy for contraction of heart. But how this contraction process takes place and why do we need energy for this? So, this is a simple quest. Just as the skeletal muscle cells undergo action potential, in the same manner the cardiac cells undergo action potential by the change in voltage of cell membrane due to movement of sodium and potassium charges inside and out the cell, and this action potential generates contraction. For all this process to take place, cells require energy, and this energy is given by glycogen, which is in the stored form, and it provides increased amount of mitochondrial ATP production. Here in this illustration, we can see the cardiac cells and the blood vessels in the second layer of heart. The last or the innermost layer which we will study is endocardium. As its name indicates, it is the inner layer closest to the heart, and so it contains the 4 chambers of the heart, the names of which we will recall together. They are right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle. It also contains heart valves, and let us recall their names also. They are tricuspid valve, pulmonary valve, mitral valve, and aortic valve. You can memorize them by using mnemonic try pulling my aorta. Here in this image, you can see the thin layered endocardium. Moving ahead, we will see that endocardium, the innermost thin layer, also contains 2 other divisions or layers. The one between them is subendocardial layer, which you can visualize in this illustration. It contains loose vascularized connective tissues, and it also contains Purkinje fibers, which we will study in detail. The next one is endothelial layer, which is inner connective tissue layer, or the elastic tissue layer. These 2 layers keeps the blood flowing through the heart and helps to keep the blood flow regulated. To memorize these 2 layers of endocardium, we can use the mnemonic sweet eggs or SE. In the subendocardial layer, we have studied about some fibers named as Purkinje fibers. So these fibers are specialized conducting fibers located beneath endocardium layer of heart, which helps in electrical conduction of activity of heart. These fibers consistently maintain the normal rhythm of the heart by allowing the heart's conduction system to create synchronized contraction of the heart from the sinoatrial node. In this illustration, we can see the Purkinje fibers, which play an integral role in electrical conduction of heart,